Putting up a Christmas tree in your front room is a tradition that stretches back years, but have you ever considered the idea of having an inner Christmas tree and decorating it to bring Christmas cheer to your inner landscape? Well, today I've got some fantastic questions for you about what are your lights, your tinsels and your baubles that you'll be putting on your inner Christmas tree as we come to the end of 2020. Sound good? Stay with me. Hit it, Kim.
Welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast. You're in the right place if you're a growth-seeking being who acknowledges the challenges and delights of your humanity on the path to an ever more conscious life. If you want to feel inspired to love and accept yourself, to feel free to be and express you in all your brilliance, if you want to truly value yourself and others and feel energized and alive both at home and in the world, then sit back and take a breath as you explore and grow the brilliance of your beautiful human self with your host, the father of non-personal awareness and creator of the MPA process, Joel Young.
Hello, and welcome to the Be a Brilliant Human podcast with me, Joel Young. I'm delighted you're here. If you're brand new, happy Christmas. What a perfect time to find us. There are 64 previous episodes as we're on episode 65. And as I record this, we're just 3 days out from Christmas. So I'm staying on a Christmassy theme today. Now, I was thinking about what to do, and it occurred to me about Christmas trees and the fact that, as I said in the intro, I've never really thought about it as decorating the inner Christmas tree. So I'm going to be looking at some of the history of the tradition of Christmas trees and then asking, why do we do it? And then how can we apply that to our inner world with the metaphorical idea of our inner Christmas tree? Now, before we go any further, if you're brand new or you haven't yet, and if you haven't, why not? Do you go ahead and hit that subscribe button wherever you are so you can be notified of all the episodes as they come out. I can't believe we're coming to the end of 2020. And oh my goodness, here in the UK, we were promised a Christmas reprieve, but most of us, certainly where I am, has gone into tier 4, which means it's basically full-on lockdown again. What a year. In fact, next week we're going to be looking at reflecting back on what we've learnt this year. And I'm also going to be looking at, what are my top 3 podcasts, my favourites of the year. That's to come next week between Christmas and New Year. But right now, 3 days out from Christmas. Well, in my household, when I grew up, we were quite traditional, I suppose, in as much as we would never be allowed to put up Christmas decorations and a Christmas tree until Christmas Eve. So it became, very special. It was Christmas Eve through to, the 6th of January when we take it all down. Is it the 6th, the 5th? Oh my goodness. That's how we did it. It always felt kind of special. I think these days people tend to put it up even as early as the 1st of December. And of course you start seeing all the Christmas paraphernalia in the shops even before Halloween. Oh my goodness, bar humbug. But I'm kind of curious, when do you put your Christmas tree up? And how is Christmas for you? Has it changed since you were younger, in your younger days? It certainly feels like it's changed for me. In fact, I was feeling a bit bar humbug at the beginning of December, I have to say. And I was saying to my mum, I think maybe it's an age thing. Christmas seems to come around awfully quickly. I don't think I've got many young listeners, so we'll see. But I was thinking maybe if Christmas came once every 3 years, it would have that kind of, it's Christmas this year kind of feeling again. But anyway, I digress. So, as I say, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to talk a bit about the history. I was quite fascinating to look it up, actually. To sort of answer my own question of why the hell do we put Christmas trees up? So I'll cover a bit of history, and then I'm going to get into some, as I love to do, some self-inquiry questions to help you get in touch with your inner Christmas tree. So the Christmas tree is one of those traditions that seems to have sort of seeped its way, beyond the sort of religianity. That's not a word. The Christian religion. It seems to find its way into homes that have nothing to do with Christianity, and it seems to be much more these days that while it's generally considered to be Christmas time, people refer to it as the festive season or the holiday season, because the world in its, commercial unity seems to have settled on this as a time of year to take a break from work and all those kind of things. But certainly I want to say right up front that I'm not in any way sort of promoting sort of Christian-centric ideas, or at least without having the diversity of other ideas and religions. In fact, when you look at it, the whole tradition of the Christmas tree started off in pagan times. In fact, they first started bringing in, usually at the beginning, branches from an evergreen tree, because they wanted to have in that sort of pagan idea that in the sort of middle of winter, I mean, the solstice turned yesterday as I record this, and to bring a sense of that sort of evergreenness, that sort of sense of the symbol of life amid the dark, cold winter nights. So part of that sort of original pagan idea of really staying connected to nature and nature's cycles. So it really all started very much pre-Christian. And one of the things I love about religion, and when you start looking at it through the eyes of history rather than divinity, you see the wonderful politics and human nature of our sort of mainstay of religions. In fact, all religions to some degree are organized by humans and therefore subject to political ambitions, designs, agendas, those kind of things, because we're all wonderfully human, right? So yeah, they started bringing in sort of branches from evergreens to sort of really remind them of life in the darkness. And in fact, that was one of the things when I first thought about this episode, in terms of, in a sense, that's what we're doing, especially after this year, 2020. When we come to decorating our inner Christmas tree, at the heart of it is really, it's bringing light to any darkness or dispelling any shadows that may be there in the darkness within. So really, it only really started becoming associated with Christmas and the Christianity thing sort of since like the 1500s. There was actually considerable resistance to it. The heretics and the heathens would put Christmas trees in, chop them down. It was all part of the attempt to squash the other religions. Of course, that's changed dramatically now. Oh, I do have a laugh on this show, don't I? But of course, the Christian Church, being a political organisation as it is, and again, I tar all religious institutions with having the flavour of that. Eventually, it was taken on board, and what actually happened was in the 1500s, people would decorate their Christmas trees, and they'd have them as part of the nativity plays. They'd end up putting them on the stage. And actually, it's quite funny because those plays in the 1500s would become extremely bawdy. And ultimately got banned. So then what happened? People have got used to having these Christmas trees or these fir trees around at Christmas. So they started bringing them into their home and started doing the plays in their home where they couldn't get banned. So, and then eventually, of course, again, politics is always, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Ended up being put into churches. I think there was some dictate that came out within the Christian church that said there was a story that got born around that time, interestingly, that we know when Jesus was born, all the Christmas trees miraculously shed their snow, and then it became okay and Christians could have Christmas trees and it wasn't heathen and pagan anymore. Gotta love the history. So it was eventually brought into churches. And what would happen in the beginning, of course, it would get shoved in a corner, usually next to a shelf full of candles. And then it being near the candles, eventually as those candles made their way onto the tree to decorate it and light it up. And that's where the whole tradition of tree lights came from. Originally, of course, being candles. Of course, these days, health and safety. Don't put real candles on your Christmas tree, folks. We've got LEDs for that. So that's how that sort of whole tradition of it came along. And then, so we have like our tree, our Christmas lights. We have our tinsel. I don't know where that came from, but it's pretty, isn't it? Then baubles. I had to look up where baubles came from. I thought, where did baubles originate from? Well, apparently it was in Germany. There's a little alpine town called, and I might pronounce this terribly, if you're German, feel free to correct me on the pronunciation, but Lauscha, which it became very famous for its glass blowing in about the 16th century. But it was in the 1800s that one particular guy in sort of the main glass blowing factory started producing fruit and nut shaped glass, which he decorated like with silver embellishments. and they started to go onto trees. Well, of course, this idea was very popular and caught on, so other manufacturers in the same town started making their own versions. So they started making animals and saints and even children, all these little glass figures with silver and gold sort of on them, and they became the beginning of the bauble. But it only really became popular when F.W. Woolworth, of Woolworth's fame, visited from America. He visited Germany, and he was quite mindful of the shift towards global commerce, or the potentiality of it at that time, and so decided to import a whole bunch of these baubles into the USA, and the rest, as they say, is history. It became a thing. Isn't it fascinating how traditions are born? So in a sense, sort of harking back through that whole thing, it's like how the history of the tree has evolved. And now I know, for example, I was married to a Muslim lady for some time, and there was a Christmas tree in the Muslim house. And, it's like it seems to have transcended the idea of Christianity and is into more a sense of it's part of the celebration of the spirit of Christmas, which is the spirit of there's a time in the calendar where an overwhelming majority of the human race actually stop and give their attention to togetherness. They give their attention to gift giving and gratitude, so giving and gratitude. And I think, again, from a non-personal perspective, as in non-personal being MPA, stands for non-personal awareness, which looks at the wider energy of things. I think there's always, I've certainly felt, a sense of that sort of the peace that descends on Christmas Day. Well, at least first thing in the morning, anyway. These days, it goes into travel madness. But anyway, let's not be cynical about it, Joel. There certainly is something about the energy on Christmas Day. Certainly, my experience is that, and certainly in this country, and probably most of the Western, more Christian-oriented places. But I think it's also true other places in the world I've visited that have not been necessarily initially Christian in their sort of traditions of religion. Nevertheless, there seems to be an acknowledgement of that being a time in our lives where we can get still, get centered, get in touch with ourselves. So the question then goes is, what does that relate to my inner Christmas tree? How can I start decorating my inner Christmas tree, Joel? Well, I've got the answers for you coming up right now. So, in a sense, when I say I have answers, I actually have questions. So, if you were around this time last year, around Christmas, I do like to have some fun with my themed Christmas episodes. And in a sense, we're kind of playing a bit here. But these are actually really good questions. If you do decide to take them a little more seriously, I guess, then, and certainly, to actually be serious for a moment, Christmas can be a very dark time for a lot of people. And if that's the case and you're on your own, I mean, I know, especially in this country with the lockdown, there's lots of people that maybe weren't planning to be on their own that will end up being on their own at Christmas. And there's this thing that can happen where when the rest of the world all seems to be gathering around and you're on your own, even if you're used to being on your own, it can feel particularly heightened, that experience of loneliness. So if that's you, then really I would take these questions to heart in a full-on way, because they can ultimately shift your inner state and bring more cheer to you in what might otherwise be a very difficult time. And in fact, it goes back to the idea in the history of the original pagan sort of idea of bringing light to the dark night, really. And on a more light note, it's really just some fun to lift our spirits, and join in with the spirit of Christmas. So it's going to take sort of a leap of imagination, if you like. Imagine, we put our Christmas tree in our front room, but if there was an inner Christmas tree, imagine that you have your inner home, and you're going to metaphorically put a Christmas tree in there. Well, first of all, you've already, meet the pagan standard. So you've brought life, the reminder of life, into there. But as we kind of go a bit further with this, we're going to decorate it. So what do you put on your tree? Well, the basics are lights, tinsel, and baubles, at least these days, as far as I'm aware. That's how I do mine. So we're going to go through with questions for each of those different things and have some fun with that. But I suppose it starts with, I've talked about the history of the Christmas tree, but why really do we put up Christmas trees today? Well, it's really a celebration, isn't it? It's like an acknowledgement of a certain period of time where we can do things we wouldn't otherwise do that feel special. We can treat ourselves and we can, do nice things for each other. But ultimately, it's kind of a celebration. So when you think about your inner Christmas tree, it's like it's an acknowledgement of celebration of yourself, I guess is where I'm coming from. So let's start with the lights, your Christmas lights. So here's some questions you can ask yourself to look at, what are the lights that you're going to put on your inner Christmas tree? So very straightforward. First question is, what lights you up? You can just ask yourself, what lights me up? Now, your responses to these questions, they might be very practical. It might be something that you can do, which will sort of represent the lights on your Christmas tree. Something very practical to go out and do something, have some fun, or something that you enjoy doing. Something that lights you up, that has that feeling, would be a measure of that. Or it could be something that's kind of more of an inner response to that question. Remember, it might be about remembering an ideal or a belief that you have. Again, because remember, this is lighting you up, especially when you go into those darker places. What lights me up is a great question to ask yourself. And it may be that you call on memories. Memories can be great sources of light in the dark. And obviously, I'm talking about positive memories here. Things that, remembering. Songs are great also for really allowing us to sort of access good times when we feel bad. It's a very powerful, what they call in NLP, anchoring power of music. Can take you right back to good times. The first one is, what lights you up? And staying with lights, but I was thinking more about the candles. Now, they're not necessarily a source of massive heat, but they are a source of fire and heat. So the other question around, the lights on your inner Christmas tree is, what brings warmth to you? Again, very similar, but has a subtle difference, doesn't it, to what lights you up? It's what brings you warmth. And again, that goes back to, to the sense of what I consider to be the spirit of Christmas, that togetherness, that connection that we can feel. And again, it might be practical or some inner idea or a memory that can help you, find something within yourself that can bring you that warmth as part of the light decoration of your inner Christmas tree. And I got one more for the lights question, which is more directed to sort of, I guess it's a question which can help you to sort of get set in case things go, a bit off kilter over Christmas, which is, what reminds you of light in the dark? I think that's a good question to have front of mind for a lot of life. It's when you really know, what are the things that do trigger you, especially when you go into the dark, because what lights you up and what brings warmth can be used generally. But if things go particularly bad, if you can get a sense sort of ahead of time of how in the past have you found the light in the dark, what is it that can bring to your mind or be in mindfulness ways where the light can be reminded to you when the dark times come. Now, tinsel goes on next on my tree. Well, I had to think about tinsels. I didn't look up any history for tinsel. I probably should have done that. For me, the tinsel on the tree is the sparkle, it's the fun, it's the fancifulness. It's a very simple question for putting tinsel on your inner Christmas tree is, what brings you sparkle? What brings you fun? This is a great question to ask yourself. We're often on the treadmill of life and, day to day, 9 to 5, if that's what you do, or the, ongoing work 24/7 if you're self-employed. It's often, we can forget to just have fun and just to have some sparkle. Now, of course, on the outside, Christmas it sort of gives you those sort of outside ways to do it. The classic Christmas dinner, pull a cracker, all those kind of things. But when you start thinking of it in terms of what brings sparkle or fun in your inner world, you might find some interesting things there. So sparkle, for example, might be that there's things that just tickle you. Maybe it's even just looking up one of your favorite comedians on YouTube just to give you that sparkle of fun. Or maybe it's doing things, that you wouldn't necessarily talk about in public that give you a sparkle in your life. Well, hey, you're decorating your inner Christmas tree. What wonderful thoughts titillate your mind. So you can bring some tinsel onto your inner Christmas tree, some sparkle and some fun. And then after the tinsel, the final touch to the tree is the baubles. So going back to where baubles came from when they were originally glass, fruits and nuts, I thought, well, that's a good way to take this question. Looking at it in terms of fruit, the baubles on your inner Christmas tree could be about, asking yourself, what are the fruits of your labours this year? And again, the reason for that is like looking at, again, I think many people have had a real challenging year. Some people have had great years in spite of the whole COVID thing, but it's been a challenge. But whatever you've been up to this year, there will be some kind of fruits of the labours that you've undertaken, the things that you've done. And what that question does is it gives you a chance to have some self-directed gratitude and appreciation, which is a really wonderful thing for bringing your state up a notch in the scale of happiness. And then the other aspect of baubles, especially as you come sort of into the sort of early last century, where people would put sweets and candies and sort of like those sugary walking sticks, or I suppose they were actually shepherds crooks really, onto the tree. So there was kind of a sense of having treats and gifts on the tree, and we certainly put gifts under the tree. That's very much a tradition. So the question that goes with this is, what can you gift yourself this Christmas? It's a great question to ask yourself, and it may be that the answer to that is you're going to buy yourself a new car or something, or an extra bar of chocolate, whatever floats your boat. It might be a sort of practical gift, but I'm really looking at maybe it's a new habit. Maybe that's a gift that you can give yourself this Christmas, or to stop an old one, maybe. Or maybe it's simply giving time for yourself, time to you. I think time is can feel like such a scarce resource in this very busy modern world. So maybe the gift to yourself this Christmas is some time, just to carve out some space, take yourself away, have some you time. Or maybe that looks like getting a sort of a mixture of both, a treat and some time for you, like go and get a massage from somebody. Now, of course, there's obviously maybe issues around COVID, but there may be something else that you can do that will allow you to get some kind of treat. Or maybe miraculously, either you're in an area that's not affected by COVID the way we are here in the south of England, where I am at the moment, or maybe you're in a place where there's none of that going on, or miraculously things will change and you can give yourself that gift at a later date. And it may simply be that you ask your loved one for a hug. Maybe you don't do that very often. Maybe it's something where you both have busy lives and you feel like you could do with extra hugs, and you can just say to them, can you just hug me? And then they'll do the usual hug and go, can you hug me a bit longer, please? No, keep it up. I want a 10-minute hug. And you can laugh in each other's arms and enjoy the physical contact of that. I think physical contact is one of those things that for many people, especially if you're one of these people that are alone this Christmas, I'm probably speaking to you. And I live alone for the most part. I spend part of my time with my girlfriend here down in the south, and part up where I live in the north. And in the first lockdown, the absence, because we didn't see each other for like 3 months, the absence of physical contact was a big deal. And I think so anywhere you can go and get some safe hands, face, space, as they say in the UK, physical contact, I think it's a really, really important thing. All right, so my beauties, those questions, I'll write them up in the show notes, which I haven't mentioned up to now. That's very late for me in the show, but you can get hold of the show notes, www.beabrillianthuman.com/65 for this episode. In fact, any of the episodes you can get hold of if you know the episode number, which if I reference them in a show, they'll either be on that week's episode show notes, and I will usually mention the episode number, and you just go www.beabrillianthuman.com/number of episode, and it will get you there. So So that's it for this week. As ever, you can reach out to me if I'd be really curious what you'd like me to do in 2021. Not looking forward to someone saying, go shove it. But hey, we're all entitled to an opinion. But I mean, like, are there things you'd like me, ways or directions you'd like me to take the show? Are you loving how it's going? Would you like for me to do more interviews, for example? That's something I've certainly thought about. And are there specific topics you'd like to cover in 2021? We're about to shift around in years now and come out of 2020. I'm not sure we're going to see completely the back of COVID, at least not for some time into 2021. But nevertheless, I think many people are like, oh, that was a year. But yeah, do let me know. You can let me know as usual in the usual ways. You can email me directly, joel@nonpersonalawareness.com. You can go to the beabrillianthuman.com website and hit the leave a message button and leave me a voice message. You can, if you want a voice message, you can do that through Facebook Messenger if we're connected, or you can go to MPA Rocks on Facebook, which is the MPA page, and leave a message via there, or even on Instagram. I'm at Joel Young MPA. I'm also that on Twitter. And of course, you can leave a comment on YouTube if you're a YouTube listener or watcher. I guess it's watch and listen, really. It's a podcast, so it's listening, but there's an image. But there'll be comment. You can comment there as well. Let me know what you'd like to do. Oh, by the way, on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Joel Young. Hasn't got the MPA there, just my name, and you'll find it. It'll say Joel Young and Be a Brilliant Human, so you'll know you're in the right place. Otherwise, yeah, 3 days to go. Have a fantastic festive season, Christmas, happy holidays, all that wonderful, yummy stuff. If you like what you hear, go and tell someone about this. Help them to have a happier Christmas than they might otherwise have done, or just in general, if they're interested in the kind of stuff that I offer here on the show, tell them about it. Say, hey, it's this great podcast. I love listening to it. Just go onto your favorite podcast platform and put in Be a Brilliant Human and Joel Young, and you'll find me. Or send them to the website, www.beabrillianthuman.com, and they will find out all the connections to all the different platforms, or they can even listen to it there right on the website. Have a fantastic Christmas. I'll be back next week, Christmas week, to talk about reflecting on 2020, and also to share with you my top 3 episodes, my favourite 3 episodes of 2020. I'll see you then. And then all that remains, as you know if you're a regular, is to cue the moo.